The U.S. military has recently deployed 3 aircraft carriers around China. What could they be planning? While intense conflicts rage in the Red Sea, the U.S. has unexpectedly withdrawn the USS Gerald R. Ford from that region. Instead, it has gathered 3 aircraft carriers in the Western Pacific near China. The USS Ronald Reagan Station in Japan, the USS Carl Vinson operating in the region, and the USS Theodore Roosevelt, which is en route. It's worth noting that the U.S. has only 11 aircraft carriers in total, and excluding the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower currently in the Red Sea. These 3 carriers represent almost all the carriers the U.S. can immediately mobilize. This abnormal action is worth heightened vigilance. In my opinion, the U.S. has 2 objectives with this move. First, military posturing and force projection. This aligns with the U.S. tradition of showing strength. A famous saying of American presidents is, "Where are our carriers?" Whenever U.S. interests are threatened, carriers are often deployed as a first response. The number of carriers dispatched correlates to the perceived threat level. For overseas patrols or low-threat areas, the U.S. usually sends 1 carrier strike group. In medium-threat regions or for low-intensity conflicts, 2 carrier strike groups are deployed. In high-threat zones or situations involving local wars or large-scale conventional conflicts, 3 or more carrier strike groups might be mobilized. Another possible reason for the U.S. assembling 3 carrier strike groups could be military exercises. In 2017, the U.S. conducted a 3-carrier exercise, but this current deployment in the Western Pacific doesn't look like an exercise. Second, aimed at the Korean Peninsula. The tensions on the Korean Peninsula are high. While these 3 carriers are powerful, they pale in comparison to China's current military strength. Even if all 3 arrived in full force, they would not pose a substantial threat to us. However, aircraft carriers still hold significant deterrence power against nations lacking robust defensive capabilities. With such heightened tensions in the region, the U.S. would not sit idly by. China's response: a strong and confident stance. 10 years ago, it might have been difficult to confidently say that U.S. carriers posed no threat. But today, the situation has changed drastically. What impact can a few carriers have now? Previously, the U.S. relied heavily on its carrier diplomacy. At that time, China lacked effective means to counter carriers and had no choice but to endure. Now, however, we have advanced capabilities. Aircraft carriers like the Type 005 series, fighters like the J-20 and J-16, bombers such as the H-6K, anti-ship ballistic missiles like the DF-21D and DF-26. These weapons extend our reach far beyond the operating range of U.S. carrier strike groups. The effective combat radius of our equipment exceeds 1,500 kilometers, while U.S. carrier-based aircraft have a range of only about 1,000 kilometers, effectively nullifying their advantage. Even in the unlikely scenario of a breakthrough in our defenses, China's strategy of anti-access, A2, and area denial, A2/AD, ensures that any intruding forces would face devastating consequences. The era of China's rise. China is no longer the vulnerable nation it was a century ago. Decades of rapid development have transformed China into a global powerhouse. With advanced military technology and comprehensive strength, we have the capability to protect our interests and uphold sovereignty. In the face of international provocation, China's principle has always been, if others don't offend me, I won't offend them. But if others do offend me, I will respond decisively. This deployment of U.S. carriers is a test of resolve. But as history has shown, China's resilience and determination are not to be underestimated. We are now setting the rules, not abiding by those imposed upon us by others. Our strength lies not only in our advanced weaponry, but also in the collective will of the Chinese people, forged through centuries of perseverance and struggle. Let this serve as a reminder to the world. China is ready to safeguard its sovereignty and uphold its principles, no matter the cost. A new era of global multipolarity. The actions of the United States cannot be viewed in isolation. They are part of a broader geopolitical context where global powers are competing for influence in an increasingly multipolar world. The era when a single superpower could shape the world according to its unilateral interests is coming to an end. The rise of China, both economically and militarily, is one of the central reasons for this power reconfiguration. By 2024, China's GDP, adjusted for purchasing power parity, has already surpassed that of the United States. Additionally, the Belt and Road Initiative connects countries in Asia, Europe, Africa, and even Latin America in a web of economic and diplomatic influence that directly challenges the economic dominance of the West. This vast infrastructure network has not only increased trade flows, but also cemented China's role as a pivotal player in global development. Meanwhile, the U.S. struggles to maintain its hegemony amidst internal divisions, economic pressures, and a shifting international system. Its focus on military deployments reflects its traditional reliance on hard power to assert influence. However, in today's world, economic partnerships and technological innovation are as critical, if not more, than military might. The role of diplomacy in crisis containment. Despite all military mobilizations, both the United States and China understand that a direct conflict would have catastrophic consequences for both sides and destabilize the entire world. This is why diplomacy remains the frontline tool to avoid unnecessary confrontations. China maintains a stance of open dialogue and cooperation, but always with clear limits. Its sovereignty is non-negotiable. In global forums such as the United Nations, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and BRICS, China has consistently emphasized its preference for peace, while making it clear that any threats to its sovereignty will be met with resolve. China's diplomatic approach is also notable for its long-term vision. Unlike Western powers that often seek quick results, China's policies, such as its Community of Shared Future for Mankind, focus on fostering enduring relationships and mutual trust. This framework advocates a more inclusive global order, challenging the exclusivity of U.S.-led alliances. What does this mean for the world? The concentration of forces in the Western Pacific is a reminder that peace and stability in the region depend on a delicate balance of power. While the United States seeks to reaffirm its military presence, other Asian nations such as Japan, South Korea, and even Taiwan are closely observing every move, knowing that any misstep could lead to an escalation. The situation also has broader implications for the global economy. The Western Pacific is home to some of the world's most critical shipping lanes, through which trillions of dollars in trade pass annually. Any conflict or heightened tensions in the region could disrupt these routes, leading to economic repercussions worldwide. The stakes are especially high for countries reliant on exports and imports from Southeast Asia to Europe and beyond. The broader issue is that this rivalry transcends the military aspect. It is a competition of ideas, values, and global influence. While the United States promotes its vision of a rules-based international order, China offers an alternative approach that respects national sovereignty and fosters mutual development. China's strategic advantages. China's military advancements over the last decade have significantly altered the strategic equation. Anti-ship ballistic missiles like the DF-21D and DF-26, often referred to as carrier killers, now pose a serious threat to U.S. naval operations near Chinese shores. These systems, combined with an extensive network of radar and satellite systems, ensure that any foreign naval presence in the region operates under constant surveillance and potential risk. Additionally, China's investment in emerging technologies, such as artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and hypersonic weapons, has given it a technological edge in several critical areas. These capabilities not only enhance its military readiness, but also reinforce its position as a global leader in innovation. Meanwhile, China's economic resilience provides another strategic advantage. With its manufacturing base, vast domestic market, and trade ties with over 140 countries, China can absorb economic shocks more effectively than many of its rivals. This interconnectedness makes it increasingly difficult for any single country to isolate China economically or diplomatically. Final reflections. A call for vigilance. This mobilization of U.S. forces should not be interpreted merely as a show of strength, but also as an acknowledgement that times have changed. Today, China is not just responding, but shaping the direction of the game. Every decision made by both sides will have implications far beyond the Pacific. What is at stake is not just the balance of power between two superpowers, but the future of the global order. How will nations around the world respond to this new configuration? The choice between confrontation and cooperation will determine the fate of billions of people. One thing, however, is certain: China is prepared. Prepared to defend its sovereignty. Prepared to promote global development. And above all, prepared to continue its peaceful rise, showing the world that there is an alternative to confrontation. Let this moment serve as a reflection for all of us. The future will be shaped not only by military might, but also by wisdom and leadership, technological progress, and a commitment to a more just and prosperous world for all.